You, my friends, you are, Mr. Secor, you are good to go. Have a good meeting.
Thanks, Seth.
Do I need to click on that? Okay, thank you. Welcome to the June 29th Scituate Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee meeting. I would like to call the meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so with a roll call vote, Ms. Yassine,
Yes.
Ms. Risha,
Yes.
Reverend Stewart,
Yes.
Ms. Dre,
Yes.
I am a yes, and Kate Swope, as of right now, is absent. Okay. All right, I'd like to read the executive order with Governor Baker's declaration of a public health emergency and the related emergency executive order dated March 22nd, 2020. The town of Scituate public meetings will meet remotely until further notice. There is an in-person option, which we'll get into, but that order has been extended until April 22nd, 2022. This meeting will be recorded by Scituate Community Television and can be viewed live on Scituate Community Television Facebook Live. The recorded meeting will be available the following day on Comcast Channel 9 and the YouTube Scituate Community Television. Okay. All right. I would like to read through some of the safe space and norms as we have in the past. This is a safe space for people of color and for all underrepresented people and communities. Any comments that are inappropriate or have an animus and racism or bias will not be allowed. This is a safe space where people can feel free to bring up challenges and questions without fear of repercussion or hostility. Take the learning, but leave the story, so that people feel comfortable sharing their experiences. Please assume best intentions. All participants are embarking on this journey at different starting points. Listen, read, and be kind. Use respectful language and ask if and when you are unsure. Administrators may remove anyone with inappropriate content or acting inappropriately. Welcome, Kate. Okay. All right, so we're 7 minutes ahead of schedule, so that's a good thing. All right, so update on committee membership. I mean, I don't have a script, I don't have anything scripted for this. As we all know, Nikki Sanders has stepped down as chair. We have a gap. So we not only have a gap in terms of chair, but we also have an opening. Well, we have two openings, right? So we need to fill Ms. Sanders' spot as well as Ms. Silvera, who stepped down maybe 6 weeks ago at this point. So as far as I know it, and Maura, you can help me out here, I think. There has been, emails and some communications coming out from the select board and others within town around openings across several committees, including this one. And my understanding right now is that it is not the intent of the select board to necessarily go back to the initial list of people that applied for this, but to solicit additional candidates.
That's correct. So we thought it should be handled just like we handle all of our committees, which at this time we put out the annual recruitment, if you will, for folks to fill open positions. So we have put that out there and advertised it so we can regain some renewed interest, hopefully, with some new candidates that come forward as well. And then we do have a candidate, and I don't know, for the employee position. who was unable to come to the select board meeting last Tuesday. I think he was on vacation. So we haven't interviewed him yet, but he'll be coming forward. And Bob, am I free to say who it is, or what are your thoughts?
No, absolutely. I think so. I mean, he was the one, we had a few employees actually express an interest, but a few said to me, listen, if you don't have other applicants, let me know. But we had one, a firefighter, his name is Jim Sixtiger, who expressed an interest. He came in to see me to talk about the committee and what the work we were doing. So he was really excited. And I just think he's a great candidate. So we have one sole candidate, and I just think he's perfect for it. So, but I think we want to go through the process of him having met with the select board, obviously.
So that's great news.
Yeah.
So, and hopefully the applications usually come in, in these weeks, and then we start interviewing folks as soon as possible, so, end of July, beginning of August, so we can get that position filled for all of you, in addition to Jim Sixtiger getting appointed.
Okay. So with regards to Jim, we just need to wait for him to go through the interview process with the select board. So that's the only kind of dependency there, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from anyone on committee gaps, membership? Okay.
No, but thank you, Tom, for stepping up and continuing to lead. And I know that's your
Well,
next topic of discussion.
Item, isn't it? So, yeah, you kind of just you gave that away more. So discussion and vote, elections to replace chairperson who resigned. So
I would like to nominate Tom Secor as chairperson. He's been an awesome vice chair and shown a lot of leadership and knowledge. And I think he would be an excellent candidate to carry on this role.
I will second that.
I was like, am I supposed to say something?
You can ask
Well,
for
any
discussion.
discussion? Do you want it?
Yeah, look, I've spoken to, jokes aside, right? I've spoken to a number of you about this, and I obviously appreciate it. I'm also, and I'm cognizant that I don't check a lot of the boxes, right? So I am a little concerned about optics, but Angela said something to me today about being an ally, right? Which I firmly believe in, and that's why I'm sitting here on this meeting to begin with, right? So I'm happy to do it. And I'm going to need a lot of help, obviously, as Nikki did, right? But I know just from working with all of you over the past handful of months, I know how invested everyone is, and I know how invested a number of people in the community are, which frankly is something that I heard Mr. Adams talk about in the school board meeting about a week ago, and he was talking about how invested this community is, and the fact that we are further ahead of a lot of communities. It might not seem like it sometimes, but there are a lot of people that really believe in this cause. So I feel that I have a lot of support. So happy to do it.
So you need to call for, we need a roll call vote.
I will
Yeah.
motion to a roll call vote. Do I have a second?
Well, I think we
I
did.
second.
So should Ruth do it since we're voting on Tom?
I think I already motioned. It was seconded.
Oh, that's
Further
true.
Yeah,
discussion.
okay.
I'll move to vote, so we don't have to motion any further.
Okay, so let's call the roll. Ms. Yassine,
Yes.
Ms. Risha,
Yes.
Reverend Stewart,
Yes.
Ms. Dre,
Yes.
Ms. Swope,
Yes.
and I am a yes.
Okay.
So, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tom, for stepping up and doing this. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yes,
Okay.
Tom, and on behalf of the board, thanks so much too, for stepping up. It's not easy, and I just want to say before you move on, and I'll be quick, but please know that I recognize, and so does the rest of the board, the amount of time that this takes, for many of our boards. And all of you have just really put forth so much effort to keep this moving and to really create, your own strategy, your own process. And I know it can be frustrating, and I know municipal rules can be frustrating, but they're in place to maintain transparency and to make sure that the public has access to information. So, I just appreciate all of you, and I hope the rest of us don't get more frustrated, and that we can keep moving and really make some great progress on this committee, because you've done so much work to date. So I just want to thank you all.
I think we'll be good. I think we have a really good team, and I think it took all of us some time to get our arms around the town aspect of this, right? And what can we do and what can't we do, and who can we talk to, and how many people, for God's sakes, I don't think any of us were math majors. We couldn't even figure out how many people to have in a meeting, right? So, but I think we've gotten better, and we know what a quorum is, and so all that good stuff. So, but no, great. I appreciate all the kind words. All right, let's keep moving. Acceptance of minutes.
Nope, we now need a vice chairperson position
thank
because you
you.
have vacated that position, Tom. So
I have.
yes. So as far as recommending someone for the vice chair position, I would love to see Angela Dre. Again, Angela's shown a lot of leadership within our ranks, and I think she represents an underserved community, which is a very valuable piece of what we do. And so I would love to see if Angela would be willing to take on the vice chair position.
Oh, thank you, Ruth. And you and I spoke, and I spoke to Tom earlier today, and I'd be happy to take the vice chair position. Like Tom mentioned, I think, it took us a little bit in the beginning to get, used to the process, but I think we're on a good roll, and I do enjoy working with all of you. I think, you are wonderful allies. I told Tom that I think he would be a great chair, and I will assist him in the position of vice chair if I'm elected to do so.
So I do make that motion to nominate Angela Dre for vice chair. I do need a second.
We'll second it.
Okay, Natasha.
Looked like we were all ready to second it.
All right, so let's move that to a roll call vote. Ms. Yassin,
Yes.
Ms. Risha,
Yes.
Reverend Stewart,
Yes.
Ms. Dre,
Yes.
and Ms. Swope.
Yes.
And I am also a yes.
Thank you, Angela.
Thanks, Angela.
Thank you both. Thank you.
Okay, acceptance of minutes. Did everyone have a chance to review any comments, revisions for Ruth?
Yeah, it seems like a really long time ago now.
It
A
does.
month is like a long time ago.
It does.
I move to accept the minutes from 6/1.
I'll second that. All right, so let's move this to another roll call vote. Ms. Yassin,
Yes.
Ms. Risha,
Yes.
Reverend Stewart,
Yes.
Ms. Dre,
Yes.
Ms. Swope,
Yes.
and I am also a yes. All right, moving right along. Public comment. I don't see anyone out there waiting to be let in. Okay, well, we can potentially amend if I did have a conversation with Connor Doherty. He wanted to share a few things for the committee. I spoke to him, I think on Friday, but well, we'll tackle that if he decides to join, or if anybody else decides to join. But we'll gain that 10 minutes. All right. So now, before we, and I realize, Jamila, you're a liaison, and we're going to give you some time in a few minutes. But other liaison reports. Maura, anything to share from the select board, or Bob from your vantage point?
I don't think so. I'm looking through my notes. Nothing that it was a pretty rote meeting again. I don't at this time, Tom.
Nothing to add from my perspective, Tom.
Okay.
Yeah, I give a quick one, call out for Scituate Stride, again, scituatestride.org. They are now on not having meetings over the summer. However, they are publishing a reading list, which will be available on their Facebook page, as well as in handouts. For instance, I know I'll be at the town market. I forget what it's actually called, in the afternoon, farmer's market tomorrow afternoon, handing out, and they now have bumper stickers. We're trying to fundraise in Stride. So you might see if you're at farmer's market tomorrow, 4 to 7. And again, consider Stride's Facebook page if you want some great reading on all sorts of aspects of DEI.
So what are they doing at the farmer's market? Are they just, do they have a tent or?
Somebody's getting us something that we stand under, yes, and a table and bumper stickers and these handout, the reading list is pretty much what we're going to have.
That's great.
Yep.
Okay.
I wanted to share something also. I'm not on a liaison in these groups, but July 5th is Cape Verdean Independence Day, and several groups in Scituate have joined to promote Cape Verde history. So the bandstand will have a Cape Verdean band performing on this Friday, July 2nd, weather permitting. Rain date is Saturday. In the Scituate Library has a display of Cape Verdean books. They also have craft kits for children on making a volcano. And there's a Cape Verdean poet who's actually a relative of mine that's going to be doing a poetry reading on July 8th from at 6 p.m. at the library. So I think this is awesome. And, growing up in this town, a lot of people would say, what kind of cultural events does Scituate have? And, we have the St. Patrick's Day Parade, which I've always gone and taken my children. But I think it's wonderful to celebrate Cape Verdean culture and, other cultures that we have in this town. So hopefully this will grow and it will be even more popular next year.
Who
Is this the
organized?
first time, Angela?
Yeah.
That
This is the
Yes.
first time. Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so it's through Scituate Pride, Scituate Education Foundation. I've helped facilitate, the band and the poet, but I didn't do any of the other legwork. This is all from these folks in these groups. Scituate Harbor Business Association, Scituate Economics. Stephanie Burke has been, wonderful, reaching out to me and to folks in this group, and the response has been great. So I'm looking forward to it. So if you guys are around Friday and it's not a torrential rainstorm, I'm listening to some Cape Verdean music.
What time on Friday, Angel?
6 p.m.
This coming Friday.
Yeah, at the bandstand. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
If it was today, we'd all be pretty happy to stand in torrential rain, I think.
I know.
It's gonna be a lot cooler on Friday. So that's great. Thanks for sharing that. Anything from anyone else? I know everyone's just dying to get to Mr. Adams, our featured speaker. All right, Jamil, the floor is yours. And I know Ruth, you had sent over some questions, but so I don't know how we want to kickstart this. Jamil, if you want to just let's do this. If you want to just kind of just re-educate ourselves with just a brief overview of what you've been up to and the Freedom Team concept, and then I know Ruth had some questions.
No problem. Thanks. Good to see everybody. Thanks for having me. I know we tried to schedule this a couple of times, and so we finally got here. I want to say congratulations to the new electees, to you both. It's great that you all are stepping up and keeping the legacy and the mission and the energy going for the group. It's fantastic. I appreciate it, and I just want to add on to that energy. The other pieces, I just got some information because we were all worried in the central office. We still remain concerned about what happened at Peggotty Beach And there was, if the news story is correct, it was a male that was connected to a landscaping company that was trying to cool off. So I don't know how they're connected to our community and stuff like that, but just want to send some condolences and energy that way, because regardless how it connects our community, they still have to come together for that. The other piece is since the last time that I had met you all, a couple of things have happened that I'm really excited about and happy about. One was the working with Scituate Pride and other folks within the district. We did a Pride open mic that was fantastic. It was filled with great energy, a number of talented people, and a space where folks trusted in the energy there and shared their own narratives as they wanted to share them. And it was filled with joy and laughter and tears of joy and of hope. So it was great. And the response to that not only was one of affirmation that it was a good space and a brave space, but that also one where folks wanted to repeat that same environment again. So we're going to put some energy together to see if we can pull off and have more open mics and more opportunities to bring our community together to just do things like that. We had all age groups represented, so it really was fantastic. So I just wanted to acknowledge that piece. I continue to do some things at the different schools that were fun. Last time, I think by the time I had met with you all, I had played basketball with folks, but this time I did kickball. And it was some different, it was a variant of kickball, but it was fun. And that was at Jenkins. Then I went back to Jenkins and was a part of their Hear the Authors Read series with all the third, I think it was third and fourth grade. Could have been just third. I know third definitely, but I think third and fourth may have done some, they created their own books. These are literal books, hardcover. They designed the cover, the back cover, the inside contents page, table of contents, the chapters, the story itself, and then had a bio about themselves. And it was just great to hear the stories that folks created. And they had 3 different areas. One was sort of about animals. Another one was, I think, an abstract area. Another one was stories of surviving the medical pandemic. And so to get to hear the students tell their versions of story, you're reminded of the genius of young people and how they see the world. And oftentimes we lose that as we get older, and so it was just great to just spend time with them, just kind of sit on the ground and just hear the different stories. But not more impressive, but just great to see was how they were reading to each other and how they just, they authentically listened. They weren't just like, all right, your turn, now my turn. They were really into each other's stories and wanted to hear the story. So that was fantastic. Then I got to hang out at the outside classroom at Wampatuck, which is another great space. And I learned about all of the gardens that are around that area. So I spent time at all. Oh, another thing that was really awesome was the Winter Spark Winder, I think was the name of it. It was an event at Gates Middle School, and all of the young people had created these games that were educational, connected to a computer and a cardboard box thing that had aluminum foil as a controller kind of thing. And you would just learn, like I learned about the coral reef and I had to swim through the ocean kind of thing. And then there was all kinds of games there. So that was just great. I was hoping at some point we could figure out how to get those games on display for a little while. If it's not in the library, some other place, because they were just fantastic. So those were a couple of things that have happened. I've been a guest in some classes, and that's been a lot of fun to be able to be a partner with some of our staff and do some things there. So those are just a couple of things that have happened, but what I can affirm also is that the principals and myself are all determined a day where I will respectively spend time in each school. So my presence will be, and I'll be there as a member of the community, not as an interloper, not as someone just evaluating what's going on, but as a member of the community. And it's kind of fun now that when I've been to the schools enough that in some spaces they say, hey, how you doing, Mr. J? And things like that. So that's good. That's what they're gonna call me. I'm cool with that. But it's just good to know that rapport and familiarity is already beginning there. So I think I'll pause there. A number of other things that are in development that I'll be happy to share as they come along. I'm happy to be the liaison and that I get to see you all a little bit more and As you all want to utilize me, please feel free to do that. I think everyone has my phone number, but you know how I feel about that. You can have it. I'll make sure folks get that. And let's do what we can together and then some. I'm so excited about what the upcoming year is going to bring. We've spoken about having a big opening event that is just filled with all kinds of energy and excitement that at the end of the day is about affirming our community, affirming education, affirming that we're together and looking out for each other. And each school will have that. And it'll be just a huge, again, hug from each school to the students and back. And so it's just going to be a lot of fantastic energy going into that. Our new assistant super, Heidi, is on board with it as well, and we got a lot of good energy there. So I'm just in a really elevated state of excitement about what we have to come forward. Now, there'll be more, and I'll share more with you all, but feel free to contact me at will. The Freedom Team piece. So the elevator speech, usually is 60 seconds, but I'll try to do it in 2 minutes because there's a little more to it. So the Freedom Team concept, I developed it as during the murder of Freddie Gray. And as Baltimore was being burned down because of unrest, I was thinking to myself, who will pull this community together? Who is necessary to pull this community together so that can potentially do what it needs to do to think about getting to a place of healing? And then I thought about, I was living in Natick at the time, said, how might this play out in Natick? Who would we need if this was the case? So I started thinking about who are some of the players that we need. And what that led to was the development of a 10-point communal response model that can be duplicated in any community. The only variance would be if it's in a more urban area, it'd probably be based on police precinct. As being someone from New York City, I know that oftentimes, spending time in some of the more urban, larger areas, usually police precincts are the guidance for different neighborhoods, stuff like that. That's just how neighborhoods are broken up. But at the end of the day, the purpose of the team is to preserve freedom through unity in the community. That's the baseline purpose of it, to preserve and ignite unity preserve freedom through unity in the community. Now, the 10 components that comprise of a team are students, parents, someone who represents the town politically. So that might be someone from the Board of Select group, or in one Freedom Team, it's the mayor, or it could be a town administrator. Also includes someone who represents the educational network. In most of our areas, there's a middle school, elementary school, middle school, high school, and sometimes a neighboring university. So someone represents that interest. Also the chief of police. It wouldn't be anybody else except for the chief of police. Then lawyer. It's helpful if they're familiar with, civil rights and civil law, but they don't have to be, but to have a lawyer. Someone who's connected to the different faiths in the community. So a clergy person, a clinician that does therapy, but can't do therapy from a trauma-informed lens. Someone who's trained in doing restorative and transformative justice. Restorative meaning bringing justice back. Transformative meaning if there was injustice there, then this is bringing it there. And then finally, someone who's able to navigate social media. Now, this team meets monthly at a minimum. And the team meets to be proactive, reactive, or retroactive for any incidents, reactive and retroactive to any incidents of bias or hate. When something happens in the community, instead of trying to figure out who do we contact, who do we call, who are the people that we have to pull together, this team is already in place for people who know why they're there and that are willing and ready to come together. Attached to this team is also a phone number called a hotline that's usually provided by the town, and it's personed by a member of the team and connected to the chief of police. The reason being that if someone reports a crime, it needs to be followed up by the police. Also, there's a website, or usually a web presence, and an email address that folks can utilize as well. And that is usually monitored by also the chief of police and a member of the team. Also, the team, typically meets in a place that's common for the community. In some places it's the library, in other places it's a restaurant, other places it can be someone's home. It just depends on where it's a convenient and common place for folks to meet. The other piece is that the Freedom Teams address all kinds of circumstances and situations and learn about things differently. Once folks are aware that there is a Freedom Team, typically they may know somebody on it, and the way that most people find about incidents is through word of mouth. They contact a member of the Freedom Team, and then they either invite the person into a meeting or they use the phone. They do a phone call. The email has happened one time, but usually it's a phone call or in-person sharing of information. Some of the issues that have been addressed are someone spewing epithets at a supermarket to assisting with students. If you remember about 3 years ago or 4 years ago, there were a number of students doing protests, rallies, sit-ins, and teach-ins. And at a number of Freedom Teams, the actual students who were involved in those, in the leadership roles for those, were members of the teams. And so they actually asked for the teams to be a part of the conversations. What a lot of people don't know is there were conversations between students and staff to talk about how we can do this together. And so the teams asked to be a part of that. Also, the team addressed issues where pride flags have been taken down and destroyed. Also assisted in sponsoring programs that were connected to discussion and community based on diversity, equity, inclusion, and or love, inclusion, and trust. And let's see, they've also been proactive in just, let's see, doing things for the community just to be helpful. Now, a recent benefit of the Freedom Teams is that there's a network now that's been established, because what started out as 1 is now 5, which will be 6. And so there are Freedom Teams in Natick, in Hopkinton, in Waltham, Wellesley, and in Franklin. And after speaking with you all the first time, and then speaking with Stride the first time I met with them, the second time I met with them, and receiving your approvals and blessing, I moved forward with the development of our own, and so we will have one. I met with the chief of police, and so we had great conversation with that, and he was able to connect with, at this point, 5 other of his colleagues, 5 other chiefs of the police, to see how this works, to talk about its effectiveness or not, and to talk about whether I was somebody, you know, cool to work with or not. And so fortunately, their response and report was an affirmative for all of us, that we can, it does work, it is effective, and work with me is not a bad thing. Just as recent as today's Tuesday, as recent as Saturday, I met with folks at Medfield. And so they're after that meeting, they get ready to start their own. I'm in conversation with folks from Walpole as well, and that will probably happen. I have one conversation with someone tomorrow, and the meeting will probably be with their community members next week, I imagine. So what we're saying is, at the end of the day, by the time the summer is over, or by the time September hits, we could potentially have 8 Freedom Teams, and then more, who knows. But what happens now is there's a network. And so, in fact, one of the things happening is tomorrow, well, I'll tell it this way. If you all can recall or know about the death of Michaela Bryant in Hopkinton, there's a Freedom Team there. So that team was activated to try to keep the community together. And it was an interesting situation because, you know, there was some unrest in terms of folks wanting something more from the DA, and then that relates to the chief of police. But they figured out how to work that out, and the chief of police is on the Freedom Team, and so but they worked together. And what also happening was they called in myself, so I'm representing the Franklin team, and also the Natick Freedom Team as well. So now these 3 teams are working together just to assist each other. Another example of the network utilizing itself is that, this Thursday, the Franklin Freedom Team is inviting some other Freedom Teams to take part in a session on how to navigate community trauma when it happens. And so that'll be on Thursday. You all are welcome. If you want, I can share the link with folks. But that's happening Thursday at 6 o'clock. So those are just some things that are there. And now the most recent conversation has been about having either annual or biannual kind of summit or conference, if you will, where the teams can come together and talk about their experiences, what's working, what different ideas there are, how things have been addressed, etc., things like that. So I think once September hits, we'll probably try to figure out how to pull that together, and folks will be a part of that. So that's the Freedom Team. That's the model, and a little bit how it works. Has been around at this point. I want to say, I think Freddie Gray probably was about 8 years ago, maybe. I could be off. I would have to check a calendar. But so it's been wonderfully received and effective. So yeah, that's that. As I've shared with people in Scituate, folks were interested in being a part of it. So it'll be great. I'll be interested in all of the referrals people can have, because I'm new to the community, so I don't know who it is exactly, but I knew that I needed to connect with the chief of police, and I think he's going to help out with trying to connect with folks in the town administration piece. And but if there are other suggestions folks have, let me know.
What was going to say? Go ahead. Go ahead.
I just had a question. What's the commitment to be on the Freedom Team? Is it a 1 year? Do you look for people to stay on for a couple of years?
So I'm laughing because when I designed it, I didn't have a term limit because I didn't think of it in terms of term. But this question has come up, like this is the third time it's come up. And I still haven't decided that there should be a term limit or not, because what ends up happening is only been turned over with, if you were to guess, you could probably guess the students, because they graduate or college, and et cetera, et cetera. Or if a member moves on, like in one situation, the minister got, he relocated to another state. Another place, the lawyer relocated to another state. So folks move and things like that. But there hasn't ever been anyone, that says, you know what, you've been on here too long. You need to replace you, kind of thing, or give somebody else a chance. That hasn't happened yet, and that's been a fortunate set of circumstances. But I don't know. That's a conversation to have. And the other thing is the Freedom Teams can be customized to fit the community. Meaning, in Hopkinton, they have about 17 people as a part of their Freedom Team. In Natick, I think they have a core 10 that they connected with. In Wellesley, I want to say they have 10. In Franklin, I know we have 12. Waltham, I believe they have a strong 8. And so that's just an example of how it can be customized to fit the needs of the community. So I don't know, the ones that, the Natick, which is the longest, the only folks that have rotated out, Angela, can I call you Angela? Angela, has been the students. And everyone else has remained. Well, there was one lawyer who left, but actually the lawyer moved back, and so he came back to the team. And so they actually had 2 lawyers at one point, and they just agreed to work together. So that's something that happens sometimes too. There's multiple interests, and folks decide who's going to be the primary representative. For example, here in Franklin, we have 2 reps from the Interfaith Council in Franklin. And so folks referred me to the rabbi as the head of the Interfaith Council, and I spoke with him, and he said, Jamil, I love it, I want to be a part of it, but I got to bring it to the council. The council met, and they came in with 2 people, the rabbi and the minister, and so he and she had a conversation. They decided they both would be a part of it. So, and that's fine, So that's a long answer to your question, Angela.
Oh, thank you.
I know there's a recommended length of time for it. In my brain, it probably be something like 3 years. But
So how far along are you in filling out the team? You early days, right?
Yeah, just starting. So only person there now is Mark, the chief, director. That's it for now. And I typically start there because then I want to know whether the chief of police is in or not. Because if not, I mean, the team can still exist, but I would have to probably employ some other strategies to meet that need there. Because all the folks that are part of it represent a cornerstone of any given community.
Yeah.
If something happens with the police, you got the police right there. If something happens in the school, you have the school representation there. If something happens in the community. You got community people. I mean, these are all the things you would need. All the different resources are right there, and if they're not right there, you have access to them. So you just try to. That's the purpose of those 10 points versus it's about the connection to those points versus the people, so to speak. Because any number of people can.
And how do you typically fill out the other spots? Is it word of mouth? Is it Facebook? Can we help? I mean,
Absolutely. If you have this is what I was asking for references. Let me know. As you know, the 10 components. If you know people who can fit the other 9, you can just email them to me or text them to me, because we know we have a chief of police already. So now we have, and technically you have someone representing the schools, because that can be me. I don't know if we need someone else. I'm not opposed to it, but I'm in it and I'm a part of the central office, so that can be myself. But I'm open to someone else being a part of it. The other thing about the Freedom Team is not a partisanship kind of thing. It's about being there for the community, regardless of what the situation is. So yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
Jamil, can you give an example of like a situation in which the Freedom Team would come together and be there for, you know, something that may have happened in the community, or how does that work in the other towns?
So, okay, so in one situation, I'll give you 2. There was a conversation, the town wants to have a conversation about how to speak about race they call it race with little folks. And so they sought out members of the Freedom Team to see if there was someone who could join a panel of folks to have the conversation. So a member of the Freedom Team actually served as a panelist for that. And so that happened. They just knew the Freedom Team probably would have the resources, so he reached out to the Freedom Team. A different situation was there were folks who worked in a supermarket, and they were under the impression that if they spoke a different language while at work, that they would either be docked hours or lose hours. And so we, the person who politically represented the town actually knew the owner of the supermarket, and that person and I wrote a letter asking to have a meeting just to talk about it and share what we knew. And so they accepted. We had a conversation and addressed the situation. And it turns out that absolutely would not be the case. It wouldn't happen. And they were able to share that with the employees that wouldn't be the case. And so it cleared up the air, and it debunked a myth that was harming people in terms of the work environment. So it was very helpful. Another scenario would be, well, like I had shared, there were the students a while ago when they were doing sit-ins and teach-ins and rallies and protests. 2 of the members of the leadership for a particular school that was doing that were on the Freedom Team for that same town. And they invited us to be at a meeting they were having with their staff, meaning teachers and administrators, to talk about their intentions to have this walkout and these teachings during this day. And they invited us there because of the membership of the team. And a number of us have been invited guests to the school for any number of reasons, good reasons. And so while we're there, the folks in the places ask us if we had any concerns or our thoughts on things, and if our support was there. And we just worked together at the end of the day. And it was a fantastic day. The walkout happened. It was received as a day of learning, and just a different way to learn more than anything else. And it was really powerful, and it had a lot of teachings in it, and it worked out. So those are just 3 different examples. One was to help out a panel. Another one was to address a situation, and another was sort of an activism type of role. And so there are more, but I was trying to give you some diversity.
No, I appreciate that, because it sounds like it takes on a lot of diverse issues, if you will, and is kind of like that mediation point between community members and maybe the situation that is causing them angst or
Yeah.
or whatnot. Okay.
Yeah, but it's important to know that the language utilized by the team is usually private and not confidential, because even though they are clinicians and clergy folks, and well, officers aren't necessarily confidential, they're private. But yeah, specifically, for the lawyers, the clergy person, and the clinicians, that when if they're not in that role, the conversation with them isn't confidential. It's private, but it's not confidential. If you wanted to have a good look at what it kind of looks like online, I would encourage looking at the Franklin Freedom Team and the Hopkinton Freedom Team web pages. Like, if you just put those in a search, you'll land on their pages. I think Wellesley has one in development, and Natick has some presence, but still in development. But if you put in the Natick Freedom Team, something will come up. But definitely Franklin and Hopkinton, and you'll get some.
Thank you.
You had mentioned that there's a hotline. I think you said it was sort of staffed by a town employee, preferably. Is that?
Well, it's staffed by a member of the team.
Yeah.
And the chief of police as well.
Okay.
And so there are two ways that this has occurred. There may be more. In one situation, the town provides the phone and the number, and there's someone who agrees to be the holder of the phone.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the phone is connected to either the chief of police, or to the police station, again, for the sole purpose that the police are always informed. Another way that this works is if folks do go the route of Google, where you get a Google number, and then if folks are familiar with how a Google number works, I mean, you just kind of can attach any mobile number to that phone number that you get, and then you can list up to 3 people who can change who receives the calls. But one of those 3 people is someone who, no matter what, if nobody answers, it automatically goes to this default person. And typically that default person would be the chief of police. So that's how the personing of the phones work. In one town, the person agreed to do it because they spoke 6 languages. Because in that town, though, there are a number of people who speak different languages, and they wanted to make sure that they were able to absorb and speak to people and translate the information to folks.
So it's sort of assumed that, particularly if it's something that requires a sort of immediate action, that individual, whoever's taking that call, they're primarily using the Freedom Team as a resources. So they know they can make a determination. I'll have to hook up with this person or this person. These are the individuals who could assist in this situation, particularly if it's something that needs a more immediate response. They're not necessarily, enacting this like large team meeting. It's they're just connecting with the individuals who are most pertinent.
Yeah, if I heard you correctly, I believe. So
Yeah.
the thing is to also, every team puts up front that it's not a replacement for the police,
Right.
or emergency services. And if it's an emergency, please call 911. That's up front. And if there is something that's immediate, again, call 911. Depending on what it is, if a call comes in, let's say a call comes in and someone says something happened between these folks, and we think it may have an impact, I don't know, at the bank or something like that, then you probably let someone who represents the town politically know, because that person probably has ties to that bank or something like that in the town, so that folks know this is coming into the bank this day, so just be aware, kind of thing, and then they can address it appropriately. The same thing might be true for something that happens between students and coming into school the next day. So that's the type of thing where a call comes in, you get it, and you notify the appropriate person about what happened, but the team is made aware and gets together as soon as possible as well. Other occasions, it may be a situation where you don't require the immediate assembly of the team, but you can hold it till the next meeting. And then either that person or people come to share it, or it's brought up by a member of the team. Otra preguntas? Yes.
Ruth,
I wanted to check on, how does this team interact with town government? Is it a completely independent? Does it need a 501c3 thing? Does it need funding? I mean, really the structure of it, what does that look like?
So yeah, it absolutely is grassroots in terms that folks just work together, and that's it. It's designed not to cost anything. Now, there have been folks offering to provide funding for different things in the past and other freedom teams, but it's designed not to require any funding whatsoever. And it doesn't need to be a 501c. It's not politically driven, like I shared. It's not partisan at all. So there's no connection to that. There's the meeting place can usually it's just some place where again where the community probably frequents and folks are happy to have folks meet there, kind of deal. One place I know it's a restaurant. Another place is in the library. Another place is at a university. And for us, I don't know, we'll figure out where that would be. I don't know. For all I know, it could be Maria's. I've never been there yet, but people tell me I got to go there. Or it could be, well, that's in Cohasset. I'm thinking of Stephanie Burke's place. I just went there. It was a fantastic, that restaurant is nice. I like Stephanie's restaurant.
It's great.
Yeah. But I don't know, in Scituate, I'm learning the places, so we'll see. I don't know what the most frequented spot may be, but I will find out soon enough. But, to be someplace. Connor, thumbs up on that one. Okay, thank you. So, Ruth, this is meant to not cost a penny, but be effective. And to let folk, because the beauty of it is the authenticity of it and intentionality of it and the accessibility and the communal nature of it. Because you know the people know you, and folks are working together. They trust it because they trust the people.
Yeah, it just takes people's time and somebody with the acumen to spin up a website and procure a phone, right? So
yeah,
and that's okay.
Well, that's the meetings. Sorry, Tom. The meetings are typically monthly. If there's nothing reported, they're just a monthly meeting just to assess what's going on, and maybe at some of those meetings come forward ideas of things for the town that folks want to do. That's where you can take the time to be proactive, or maybe provide a training or a film series or a speaker. The other piece is that it's meant to be complementary to any other existing entities. For example, it is not in competition with Scituate Pride or Stride or the SDEI or our crew here. It's not in competition at all. It's complementary to all of those things. And in fact, in all those other towns, it is complementary to the other organizations. In fact, some of the members of other organizations land on the freedom teams in many circumstances.
My last question was just about one of the roles, but you mentioned, and I think it was one of the separate roles, someone with expertise in restorative and transformative justice.
Yeah.
Was one of the roles.
Yeah.
Who is that typically? Is that another lawyer, or is it?
No,
is it?
So that role, it depends on the community, and if they have someone that already does RJ, the short version is RJ or TJ already. If not, then you can lean, if there's an immediate need, you can lean on the other freedom teams to provide someone for it. Now, I'm aware on how to do that, and but there's also some additional resources. We might want to train some people to be able to do that, and we can do that, and then we have not just one person, but a number of people that actually are able to do restorative justice.
Is it like a social work discipline kind of?
Could be. In other situations, in other freedom teams, the person that does do that does the restorative justice actually is a social worker. In one place, they're also a clinician too. But there's definitely a specified training in order to do it. And so, like myself, I know some people I would want to implore to either do training for us, or that there'd be a resource for us if we didn't have anyone.
Okay.
Mhm.
For instance, I have a contact who is comfortable with restorative justice work, who's a university professor,
Right,
because I
right.
know it is done in education settings.
Yeah, I would love to get that resource and
Well,
see
maybe you will.
stuff
So
with
I'll
that. Yeah.
contact her.
So yeah.
So,
All right.
Jamil, one question I had around, do you have any contacts or anyone that's working in mental health first aid?
So
Or sort of trained in that field?
well, do I have the training or do I have contacts? You're saying, right?
Or just is this part, I guess, is this part of the Freedom team? If you want, I have a colleague at Boston Public Health Commission that works in that space. And they train volunteers to do that. So I'm happy to put you in contact. But I didn't know if that's something you already knew or already had members that knew that.
I do not. Please send that to me, text it to me, or whatever. I do not have that for us as of yet, but would definitely appreciate having that contact.
Right. I'll send you that connection.
Thank you. Can I say Kate? Kate, yeah.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Yeah. The reason I didn't ask Ruth because I spoke to Ruth before.
Okay. Anything else for Jamil? That was
We
fantastic.
do hope we'll get routine updates, Jamil. And again, I think I will be in touch with you because again, this is a fascinating concept. And I think it's one that we've talked around this concept and didn't know that there would be one piece that might actually work to help bring us forward. And so I think that it really looks like an idea that would fulfill a lot of roles within town that we as a body do not fulfill. And I don't know any other body in town that does.
I don't either. And I mean, I think we've all got our thinking caps on about some of the different roles, but to the extent that you need help with anything, I think it's pretty clear that you're not shy, but don't be shy, Jamil. So
Not at
that
all.
was fantastic. And you slowed down our agenda, but it was well worth it.
Yeah, sorry about that. You're like way ahead, like about 8
Well,
minutes.
we
So
sped
we were,
through
yeah.
because we carved out a lot of time for you, and it says 10 minutes, but that was fantastic. So thanks again.
no, thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamil.
Thank you.
Tom or Ruth, whenever we circulate the minutes, can we just reshare Jamil's email and phone number in case we think of anybody that would be helpful for the team?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. Well, we're gonna keep churning along here. Jamil, go ahead.
I just had a question. As a liaison, am I just here silent, or do I get to speak, or I don't know what my guidelines are.
Jump in whenever you want.
Okay.
Whenever you want. All right. So we're going to segue to updates from the working groups or the project teams. So this will be where, I think we give updates on going back to the 3 prioritized groupings of town departments, right? So, and I have a general update on these, but I'll ask, I'll do the Board of Health, Facts, and Social Services last, because we did actually have, I was going to say a physical meeting, it was virtual, but we did have an initial meeting with those representatives, which I think was really good. But if we could kick it off, so the Scituate Police Department, I think I'll give a general update. Bob is, so that team, right? So that's Ruth, Angela, and myself. And I think we've got the questions, and I think they've been circulated, right, Ruth? I think
They have, Tom. I think we still may tweak them some more, but I think
Yeah,
people
we
can
have
see
time.
overall where we're headed.
Right. So the chief wants to meet in person, which is fine, but it has introduced some scheduling challenges, right? So with vacations and what have you. So right now, I think we're gearing towards, I want to say August 20th. Am I getting that right?
August 20th, correct, right?
So we have a meeting that's getting scheduled, a 2-hour in-person meeting at the public safety building, the Scituate Safety Building, on August 20th with the chief, and I'm not sure if he's going to have other people with him. So, and again, those questions are available, and we'll circulate them again, I think, as we tweak them. So, and anyone can provide input, obviously, into the
And
question.
Tom, is that just police or is it public safety that includes fire as well?
That's just police.
Just police? Okay.
Okay. DPW, I've seen those questions as well, but I don't have any further updates.
So no further updates. I think we circulated them. Tom, I've heard from you and Ruth on a couple of edits, so we'll just make those edits and then I think we can call them final unless the group wants to chime in this week. And then we can reach out to set up a meeting soon, maybe next week. So reach out to set up the meeting, not meet next week. So.
Understood.
I can work with the DPW director to set up a meeting next week if we want to try to do that.
Yeah. Oh, not to meet next week, Bob, but yeah, if you want to reach out to see what works for everybody, that would be awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
And let's see. So last but not least, so we did have a meeting with, let's see, who was in that meeting? So that was Reverend Stewart, Ms. Swope, Bob, and myself last week. Last Wednesday, we met with Erica Soros, Manager of Social Services, Andrew Scheel, the Board of Health Director, and Anne Marie Galvin from staff. And that was, so that meeting was deliberately more of a conversation, right? And unfortunately, we only had an hour. So we likely didn't get through everything, but I think it was a very good, and I'll stop talking and let others speak, but I think it was a good initial discussion to kind of re-review for them, because we didn't want to make any assumptions as to what our charge is, what our goals are. These types of things, got a better understanding from Erica, from Drew, from Anne Marie as to, you know, what they deal with on a day-to-day basis. We talked a lot about community engagement. We talked about you know, further educating town employees, almost taking a step back. This is something that Erica had in her questionnaire. There was a lot about training in there. So, and that's something that is eventually going to mushroom into a recommendation, certainly from this committee. I think that goes without saying. But so those were kind of the main topics. Like I said, we only had an hour. Natasha, Kate, Bob, anything else to add on that meeting?
I think it was a great meeting, and I think they're doing a lot already, but it was also, I felt like they both could see that there was room for growth in what they were already doing. And Erica was, I thought, particularly articulate about needing some more procedures, I guess, sort of formal procedures as to how recommendations would come to her under all circumstances. So that I think I was sad with, like, we only had an hour because I wanted to dig a little more into some of the stuff that we just didn't have time for. But I think that might be an area that we could recommend she get some support or some extra training or whatever she needs to be able to develop that, and not just on her own, but the whole town and how all the departments in the town connect to her, and all the organizations like the different churches and things. I mean, I knew to call her because we had a meeting with her as the clergy, and I had something come up, so I just called her. But I'm not sure that like other organizations might think of her in the way that I did in that moment. So I think there's a lot of potential for growth, and Amory Galvin, for those of you who don't know her, she's always full of great ideas. So she had lots of great ideas about things we could do and how we could do them for educational and community outreach and sort of drumming up interest and all of this kind of stuff. So I sort of came away at the end feeling like that was a great first conversation, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
I think it was helpful to really talk with Erica in particular to kind of get a handle on what she does, what is her role been. It did become somewhat clear that I think kind of as Reverend Sue was saying, there needs to be a sort of a more streamlined approach to sort of getting referrals to her. But I think she's a potential real resource for people who may be having experiences that they need some support with. But again, I think that she was really clear that she really needed some guidelines on exactly how that works. So I think that there's a lot of sort of almost procedural things that we need to sort of button up and get a handle on. But ultimately, I think she's on board, and I think she could be a real help for some of the work that we're doing.
Yeah, I echo everyone's statements, and also would just say, it was interesting to hear how social services and the Council on Aging and the Senior Center sort of connected. And it sounds like the Senior Center is becoming a social service hub, which is really exciting. And then again, thinking about sort of trainings and systems, what are the formal and informal pathways? Because, and everyone's talked about this, but I think for some, it's a very easy connection to reach out. And for many others, they might not be aware that the service is even available. So I think that's interesting as we sort of look at social services for the town. How well is it publicized? Does everyone feel sort of that they have the ability to reach out and they'll get a prompt response, that kind of stuff. So I think it's really exciting, and she's doing great work. And then also just with the senior center being finished in such a beautiful building, that's such really a hub. Seems like it's turning into a hub of social services. It's very exciting.
And then the only other thing to add is the Veterans Director, Don Knapp, was supposed to be on that call, but then he had a family emergency, so he wasn't able to make it. But again, similarly, he's another resource for all the veterans in town. So and he's also at the Senior Center as well. So there's some possibilities there as well. So unfortunately, he couldn't make the meeting, but there's definitely some possibilities, I think, with him as well.
I definitely felt between all of those, like the Senior Center, and then what Erica does is the social worker, and then the schools, right? And then the veterans, like we cover all areas of people in town. Everyone fits into one of those age groups, and some will also fit into being a veteran. So like, to me, that was just really, like, we have the framework in place. We just need to make sure it's working to its full capacity, and aware particularly of how it can be better and more effective, particularly around DEI kinds of issues.
And will you all, after you meet with them again, come back with summarizing, what you heard and having some of those recommendations on how to improve that for them? That's the ultimate goal, right?
Yeah, that's the idea. We definitely need another hour, if not 90 minutes, I would say, with that group. And look, they were really engaged. If they weren't, we wouldn't need another 90 minutes, right? So, especially with Anne Marie if she's watching. But look, there's a lot of this is they were helping us with ideas too. I think I took from, and I know a lot about how Anne Marie got facts off the ground. My wife used to volunteer for her, still does sometimes. And there's some lessons that could be learned depending on what some of our recommendations might be, right? She knows how to write grants, for example, right? So there's a skill set that she has. I think she could be a good resource for you as well, Jamil, if you're looking to fill out different, members of the Freedom Team. She's also not shy about reaching out to people, and I think she and a lot of others in town have a deep Rolodex, and they know, who's involved with what, and that's important. So, but yeah, that's definitely the idea, Maura.
A question, and I'm prefacing this by saying I don't know about all the services offered by the town, but I know a couple people referenced, the senior center becoming a hub. I guess the counter to that is some people will never go to a central place. Like, we have to meet people where they are. So I think a question for follow-up is what kind of services are available to meet folks, at their home or at another location that's not a town building or may not be as accessible to some folks for whatever reasons.
Erica did say that she met people in their homes or
Okay.
restaurants or, wherever, but she operates her offices in the senior center. So that's a club in that sense, but she's not actually directly servicing seniors. Her age bracket is the 18 to 65, right? The after school and before you're a senior age bracket. And I thought she was pretty clear that she operates from there, but travels frequently. So, but it's a good point, Celia, of like, if you feel like that's all you have to do is go to the senior center, I'm not a senior, you're not a senior, why would we go? So how would you know that that's there? Because not all towns have a social worker. I mean, we're really lucky in that way. So.
Thank you.
Will you share questions? Because I think you said the meetings were just to get more of understanding of what they're doing. Are you going to have like a list of questions that we as the group can read and perhaps give any further comments to?
Yeah, so I've given that some thought. I haven't circled back with Reverend Stewart or Ms. Swope, but I think now we have a pretty good picture as to what they do and so forth. And I think the next step, because again, we didn't have follow-up questions for them. I think for the next meeting, we should at least have a framework for that, which we'll put together and we'll share that. Okay. Let's see here. Anything else on project teams before we get into the next agenda item? Okay. Actually, we've got, and I know because we were so far ahead, we did not have public comment. I would like to recognize Connor Doherty.
Hey, all right, thanks. Just quickly, I had to step away a few times. Is there, or has there been a meeting with the Cultural Council? Is there a plan for that? I would put that on there just because when you look around town and like culturally, every bit of public artwork that presents a person, they're able-bodied, they're white, they're usually heteronormative, there's couples, like there's just culturally, there's a lot we can do in our town to change representation of what we value and to make it more diverse. And I think talking to the Cultural Council about their process and how they award funds, because I know that's a big part of what they do, is just sort of say, here's grant money, go do that project. So what are they looking for when projects come to their door, and how can they be more proactively inclusive when it comes to how they award? So I would just put them on the agenda as well.
We have not met with them yet. But yeah, we'll certainly take that into account. Absolutely.
In fact, we have a whole bunch of boards and committees yet that we had not. We prioritized just the top ones that we needed to talk to right away, but that didn't mean that we would end then. It's just taken us a lot longer than we expected to get through the ones we're looking at right now.
Right.
I'm happy to help out Connor with that. I'm on the FCC, the Franklin Cultural Council here, and when you talk about those grants, it's such a great opportunity to present to different artists and different different talent and different folks in the, hey, little person in the community. So I'm just happy to be of assistance with that as well.
Great, thanks, Camille. All right, let's keep going. So the next agenda item is to Review the project plan. So this is something that I'm going to share my screen. So bear with me here. Can everybody see this?
Yes, we see it.
Yes, yep.
All right. So, and I'll admit, I had to refamiliarize myself with this over the last couple of days. This is something I think, and I think it was started by maybe yourself, Ruth. I think Angela had a hand in this at one time as well. And I'm not necessarily bringing this up to have us go through everything with a fine-tooth comb. I don't think we have time for that tonight. It's more to get it back on our radar, because I feel like it fell off our radar and we weren't necessarily talking about it as a regular agenda item. Okay. And the reason why I'm talking about it in this respect, and there's different tabs on here, and I'm going to have to go offline and, you know, have some conversations probably with our newly minted vice chair and with Ruth. Okay. And just get us to a point where we're comfortable with this as a kind of a driving document to ultimately get to our recommendations. All right, so we need some type of, in my opinion, we need some type of tracking mechanism, parking lot, whatever we want to call it, to get all of the great ideas into some type of a progression that will either end up as a recommendation, or we say, no, we're not going to do that. It's not part of our charge, whatever the reason is. Okay, so I think this is, and there's this tab here, ongoing projects, working groups, and then there's this piece here where, forgive my terrible artwork here, but I'm trying to get us to the review report recommend stage. Okay, and there's dates, and we're going to need to have owners and who the support teams are, and again, whatever it happens to be. Okay, so, but ultimately, you know, getting in front of Maura and her colleagues, we need to make sure that, you know, A, it's a proper idea, B, that we've done some level of due diligence to get it to a point where we can stand behind a recommendation. Any general thoughts here? I mean, a lot of the things that are in here, you know, have been out here for, and again, I'm the first guy for you to point a finger at. A lot of the things that have been out here for 3 months, and you know, we haven't necessarily done a lot with these things. That's okay. We still have time, but I think we should go through. Again, not necessarily tonight, unless you guys want me to dive deep on a few of these things, but get us to a point where we can prioritize half a dozen, you know, different initiatives coming out of just community ideas that we've been given, or coming out of our meetings with the town departments, and see if they match with our goals, see if they match with our charge, and we can progress them through the chain.
I'm also concerned because sorry, Natasha, because some of the suggestions that came up that we actually presented to the select board last time we presented were never actually reflected in proposed things to do. And so it just kind of went and kind of like gone. And yet we've got some great feedback of what the select board would like to see happen to make those developed further. So again, I was always seeing proposed projects as ideas that people brought up, not necessarily that we were going to adopt, but we captured ideas. And we didn't capture all those ideas on this. So this, I would suggest, is a very incomplete section right here, just the proposed project working groups isn't even all the proposed things that we had looked at. It's just something that somebody suggested, so we put it on there in case we wanted to come back to it. Whereas the ongoing projects, I think that does really capture things that we agreed that we were working on at the time. Don't know if that is true now. And I think especially because, as you were kind of putting on the other page, we need to know who is the lead, who are the helping people. And if we don't have somebody working on a project or in a work group, we don't really have a work group.
Right. Right.
So I would not mind reviewing our current work groups to see what we really have there, and to, you know, cross out or archive or do something with work groups that are not active, or to make a recommitment to a work group that, yeah, we really are going to work on that. Nothing's happened yet, but we're really going to do that.
Yeah, and we can have an archive tab or what have you. I mean, I don't want to delete anything.
Right.
Because I mean, every idea that's come up, there hasn't been a bad idea.
Right.
But some just may be outside our remit, or we don't have the horses to chase something down, what have you. Right. There's a lot of different reasons, but as different things come up, what Connor brought up 5 minutes ago should go into a row, and just so we can track these things, because otherwise, like I know personally, I'm just at an age where I need to write everything down, right? So I will forget.
I also think some of them have evolved. You know, when you look at that first tab, the equity task force, you know, that in my mind is probably now the freedom team, right? That place for residents to go to when you look at the.
That was the previous tab. He's moved now, so.
Oh, yeah. The proposed, right. So.
That was 3.
So anyway, you know, I think.
No, we can update it here, right? So.
Yeah, be great to review.
Okay, so I don't want to belabor the point. That's all I kind of wanted to share. It's on Slack, but I'm going to want to make this part of every meeting. And again, not to go through every row, but for new ideas and initiatives, ideas where we have an update, and we can we'll just use this as kind of a mission control, if you will, to chase these things through the food chain.
Is the hope then, Tom, that those ongoing project working groups, that they would be doing the sort of research or what have you to be able to make a recommendation to the select board? For example, we had that great recommendation that all town meetings should start with safe norms, right? And then we had the feedback from the select board that they didn't even know what that meant. And so we needed to go back and do our work and say, this is what that means, and here's some examples of how that would work. So that would be,
that's right.
Like, right. So there should be a working group on that, so that we can present that, recommend that like fully, not just here's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm going to want to get something with a few of you to even agree if these are the right tabs, right? So maybe there's 3 or 4 tabs, and I just want it to be logical. Okay, this is almost a wish list. This is a dumping ground for all the ideas.
Right.
The next tab is, this is what we're working on. And then there might be another tab that shows an archive, or we can just have a status. I don't want to make it into a huge science project, but yeah, because I mean, that's a great example, Natasha. I mean, I think that's an excellent idea, to introduce safe space norms for all the town meetings, okay? But it's not even in here. And it needs to be, right? Because I think it is, that's the low hanging fruit. That's the tactical, quick hit recommendation that I think we could get adopted, but it has to be thought out, and we need to be able to present it confidently.
And also, Tom, we need somebody who's willing to take it on as a project.
Right.
Right now, I would suggest that with our current numbers, no more than 2 be in a working group.
Yeah, I would agree.
You can do 3,
Yeah.
but
I can lead on that one if someone wants to help.
I'll work with you, Celia, on that one.
Thank you, Angela. Yeah, so Angela and I will connect.
Awesome. All right, well, that's great. And listen, if you guys have, I have to stop saying you guys. If you all have ideas, if you take a look at this, you can pull it. It's in Excel on Slack. It's not a PDF. You can pull it down. I can also send it to you, what have you. If you have suggestions, on this document, the format, anything, just let myself, or I would say, or Ruth know at this point. Okay. Anything else on that? Okay, great. All right, so our next agenda item is to discuss a document that Ms. Swope sent on the Massachusetts Commission on LGBTQ+ youth recommendations. And we all read the 215-page document, correct?
Yes, yeah, as did I. So I'm shaking my head now. So I just wanted to send this around to everyone, just something to be aware of, a really great resource, actually. So there's a Massachusetts Commission that reviews sort of everything related to LGBTQ youth. They've been doing this for a very long time, and they come out with annual recommendations that are very comprehensive. So there's some incredible data there as it relates to LGBTQ youth, use of color, et cetera, that I think is really helpful. The overarching, if you don't, again, have time to read the 215 pages of the report, which I myself did not, there's a 2-page executive summary that I sent around, that essentially is saying that this past year was especially hard for, I would say, everyone due to COVID. LGBTQ youth failed particularly poorly this past year. And then significantly LGBTQ youth of color and trans individuals are uniquely vulnerable, I would say, in general in communities, and especially during COVID. One thing that I can certainly say from my work, so I do social services for a large property management company, and one of the things that we saw was that during COVID, when everyone is locked down, those that don't have a safe place to call home had an even harder time, right? Home might not exist or it might not be safe. And for individuals that need support or need to be able to have some privacy to call for help, they had less of an opportunity this past year. So I also think you see this echoed here. So I think it's an important thing, as we sort of think about underrepresented communities, making sure that this annual report is part. I think this is important reading material for anyone to be looking at, and then thinking about what steps we can take to make sure that, some of our most vulnerable youth are well supported. I've seen on the project plans, a comment around gender neutral bathrooms. I would also think that's a pretty low hanging fruit one, but we can sort of dive into that further at another time. But I don't know if anyone has questions on this, comments. Mostly this just came across my desk, and I think it's a real resource of information, so I wanted to share it with the group.
I mean, my question, Ruth, go ahead. I'll go next.
okay, Tom, you go first.
Yeah, I mean, so my only question was just that, you know, I read the 2-page summary, and the document itself is daunting. But, and I literally just flew through it, you know, on page down, and I stopped there's a lot of information in there. And they obviously, whoever put this together, they worked very hard on it. And there are a slew of recommendations, right? It's a long list across a lot of different topics. So, I mean, my question is, what can we adopt? And that's a very 30,000 foot question. But I mean, Kate, would you be willing to cull through at least pieces of it and see what aspects of that, of the larger document, you know, would make sense for Scituate?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. You know, on initial pass, I would say just from this and also my work and other activities, I think any opportunities that we can have to be very proactively open and affirming, you know, are always going to be important for young people, right? You know, they're looking and they're listening and they're seeing how you act, and that informs how they act. And so when we think about this past weekend, there was Scituate Pride, you know, and so for individuals that went, you know, there was a march and some activities and stuff. And so flags, you know, people displaying flags on their private homes and in businesses is, I think, one of those examples. So supporting activities like that is a real nod that can help, you know, young folks know that it's okay, and that there's places where they can go if they need help, so they can feel supported. So I'd be happy to go through this, but I think, you know, opportunities to be open and affirming are going to be important for many different minority groups, but especially for LGBTQ youth. Bathroom stuff is number one, you know, is, I think, really critical when we think of single stall, gender neutral bathrooms. You know, and I'll dig more into sort of what that could look like and what that adoption could be. But, you know, for many transgendered individuals that I know personally, going through a day can be very hard because you're not sure where you could go to the bathroom and where it might be safe. So there's even some just very immediate health components to that. But yeah, happy to look through it in more detail and bring out some recommendations.
Thank you. Ruth, and Angela has her hand up too.
Yeah, so Kate, also what we really need to focus on for this committee is recommendations we can make to the select board. So recommendations on what the town itself could do, rather than overall recommendations of town people, but the town as the select board could do. I'm also wondering if this is something that has been sent to the schools, or if the schools are aware. They set their own recommendations, but that's something that, and Jamil, I'm assuming you wouldn't know if they've gotten this or not. I don't even know if you received this from Kate, because you're not part of our internal list person. Would you be able to forward this on to somebody at school if we sent it to you?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I think I'd like them to get more. Yeah, I'd like them to be able to see this and kind of work on it a little more, because they make their own recommendations. But then going through this document, what could what can we say to the select board that the select board should support X and Y and Z and Q? And as far as the gender neutral bathrooms, Bob had already done work on that. So he has information about it. It just hasn't been picked up and developed. It's one of those things that, again, fell through the cracks. And if anybody's interested in working on that with Kate, that's, again, a project just waiting to finish up, because we already recommended it, and we need more information on it in order to really present it well.
I can work on that with Kate.
Excellent.
My other thought too was sort of along the same lines as yours, Ruth, is I wonder if we flip this over, or the Public Safety Committee, if you bring it and share it with the police department as well, as just training and creating that sensitivity and, as you said, openness and affirmation. I don't know if they've seen it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I've only just shared it with this, the members of this group. So Jamil, I'll flip it to you, and happy to share it with anyone else. It is a pretty dense document. If we wanted to have further, I'll go through it and think about recommendations. If we wanted to have further speakers, on this topic, we could do that as well. I certainly think the school could take the lead, as it relates to youth on this, if it's something that they were interested in. I can put us in contact with, I know one of the authors of this document, so I can put us in contact with them if we wanted to.
Angela, you had a comment or question?
I had a comment, but Ruth actually covered it. We did propose the gender neutral bathroom, and we do have comments back from Karen on that. So I don't know if Kate has seen that, because that might have been before she joined the team, but I think that would be a good thing for her to have. And Tom, you're still sharing your screen. I don't know if you know that. I don't want you to open up an email or something and think we.
I'm trying to stay focused on the task at hand, so I shut my email down. But thank you. Okay.
I say on the gender neutral bathrooms, we're actually in relatively good shape with that. I think the main thing we have to work on really is just signage. But so again, it's a good example of some low hanging fruit that we could probably.
But Bob, what I can do is I can work with you and gather the whole list, what the status is by building, and then we can come back and just really make sure that it's across the board. And if it is just signage, it's funny, I have signage written down because I know that's important. So no sense in having them if people don't know we have them.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I would just add to that too. I think it might require even more thought because of the layers involved. So there could be someone using a gender neutral bathroom that also has a child. Like, is there a changing table in that room, and not just like in a family room or just the woman's room? Like making sure it's outfitted. If we're going to do it right. And I think Maura, you had made the point before too, that it's not just existing bathrooms and retrofitting them, but somehow writing it into or making the recommendation for future buildings that they would also have gender neutral bathrooms. So not to forget that point that you have made.
No, that's a good point.
Okay. All right, well, great. Thanks for that, Kate. Fantastic.
I just want to follow up with one quick thing of what I was hearing Kate say too. I think maybe something else we can think about, not on the bathroom topic, right, is it was great to have Karen Canfield at the Scituate Pride walk on Saturday as a select board person who was there and representing, and for all of us to be aware, or somehow to make sure that we invite the select board to participate in things like that and other types of things, because that support shows a town support, not just a group of people in town, right? But it shows that sort of connection to our town leadership in a strong way. So I was super happy to see her there, and recognized as being there as a select board person. And so there's some way we can kind of recommend that is something we make an extra effort to do, not just for Pride, but for let's make an extra effort to make sure that somebody's at the concert for the Independence Day on Friday, and all of these sorts of events that are going on around town, so that there's that connection between our town leadership and all these sort of diverse topics.
Okay, thank you. Jamil, do you have a question or not?
Just real quick, I just wanted to make sure that folks felt, I'm new to our family, I just want to make sure folks are feeling good about sharing the document at this point. I mean, because we might want to put a little more work into it before we share it. Because once it's gone, once it's out there, it's out there. I'm just saying, just want to make sure.
Before we share what type of document?
The doc that I think Kate was going to send to me.
So
that wasn't published by us.
Yeah, this is something that's published by the Massachusetts Commission for LGBTQ Youth. So it's a formal document that's
Oh,
a matter of public
okay.
record that they put out there. So it is quite comprehensive.
Oh no, I confused that with something else. Gotcha. Okay.
But if you read all 215 pages and you still want more, just let me know.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, thank you. Again, all right, last few items. Discussion on timing, and then this is left over, I think, from the last meeting, but timing for our next presentation to the select board. So, Maura, I don't know if you have a preference on this. You know, I think we're, you know, we obviously canceled our last meeting. We're kind of just still getting our sea legs. I mean, that's my view on this. I think we've made a lot of progress tonight, but I don't think we're not there yet. Like, for example, if you said, can you get in front of the select board meeting in next week or in 2 weeks with a set of recommendations, I would say no.
I honestly don't think there's a rush.
Okay,
I'd
good.
rather you have made, I think, you know, make some good progress, and you were just in front of the board, what, like, I want to say a month and a half ago, really,
I
quite
think so.
recently.
Okay.
Yeah. So, you know, maybe we target September as the next update.
I'm comfortable with that. I mean, so I would agree to just, I would just, I don't know, I was gonna say motion, but I don't think we have to vote this, right? Just to kind of push this, we can keep it on the agenda for future meetings, and I think we'll know when we're ready. I mean,
Well, I
look,
think-
we want to keep moving towards dates, right? I don't want to, you know, I don't want to get lazy about this personally, but I think we'll know when we're ready.
The one thing Thomas said, I think periodically we need to report just to report and not to recommend. And I think that we don't have to have, we've said this a bajillion times, but we don't have to have a recommendation. I like the September date. It kind of, as we're moving into fall, it kind of wraps up on, and whether or not we have a recommendation, we can talk about the things we're working on and looking at, and then the recommendation will come when it comes. And maybe a recommendation comes up in October, who knows?
Right, exactly. Okay. Yeah, I think we're all in agreement. Other business that may properly come before the committee after the agenda was posted. Is there anything else that we want to report? Okay, let's keep going. So future agenda items. And this wraps into future meeting dates. And for people that were on, I know we have various vacations coming up, including my own. I'm going to be out of town the week of July 12th, and I know right now we have a meeting scheduled for the 13th. So, frankly, I don't know how we want to handle that. I anticipate that we're going to stay remote for a while. Actually, let me take that back. In talking to, I think, Maura, and talking to Seth about 15 minutes before the meeting started, we will have an option, as long as there's a quorum, we can meet in person. So if there's 4 of us that want to meet in person, and 2 of us that are more comfortable dialing in through a conference phone, we can do that. All right, so that's an option.
Is it a conference phone or would it be Zoom? Because to me, that's very different.
Yeah, right now, I think Seth's on, but I think right now it's just a conference phone. We could probably Zoom you, but I think that limits the public hearing them. Seth, is that right? Or what are your
Well, no,
thoughts?
it'd still be okay. We're still working on that. It really, I mean, it's just a little tricky how we figure that out right now. But we are working on that. But we do hope that it will be Zoom so individuals can see you. Yes, and hear you.
But in the meantime, could we do that as a solution? So say 2 people wanted to Zoom in and the quorum of 4 was in person. Are we in compliance? I think so.
Yeah, oh, no, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
And we could still stream on Facebook, so we still have that same, or no?
Well, no, we could figure that out.
Okay,
We could, yes.
okay.
Okay, so we have a few options. Yeah, I don't think we need to decide today the format of our next meeting. So,
Did you still want to meet on the 13th, Tom, or did you want to change that date?
well, I mean, I would prefer to change that date, which probably means then we're going to jump into other people's vacations, but I would like to change the date. You know, I as much as I could plan on, you know, zooming in remote on the 13th. I can't guarantee that I'm going to have good Wi-Fi where I'm going to be, and so on and so forth. So I'd rather not leave that to chance. So I would propose pushing our July meeting to July 20th, if people are amenable.
I'm not available on the 20th, but you are more important than I am in this situation, Tom, so I would be okay with that.
I am also not available on the 20th.
See, this is what we're going to get.
It happens in the summer.
Yeah.
It might be the type of thing where you just have the meeting and those who are available are present. And I mean, you don't do any.
I think you're right.
Yeah, Angela can drive it. Right, Dange?
You just don't do any heavy lifting, that's all.
Angela, I helped set up the agenda with you, so
I was going to say Ruth takes care of the agenda. I'll be good.
no, we'll collaborate.
So do we want to go forward with the 13th? Is that what we're saying?
Sounds like it, Tom.
Looks like it.
Okay.
And again, Representative Joan Machino will be a guest visitor on the 13th, so it's nice to hear from her at that time. And we've already had to reschedule her due to issues with Zoom or non-Zoom. So for her, I think she would prefer to remain Zoom. I think right now, especially with Tom not here, I think trying to go live might be a little challenging. So if we could confirm that we have a meeting on the 13th and it's a regular remote meeting, that makes everything a lot easier.
Okay.
And then how are we for the 17th of August? Because that would be the meeting after that.
I'm okay with that.
That's good for me.
And the agenda, you know, for the agenda in 2 weeks.
No, okay, so Tasha's still bad for that. Oh dear.
Yeah, I know. I'm just like inconvenient, aren't I?
Well, but you're okay for this next one though, so.
Yeah, I'm okay, but I'll be there at 13, so I would just miss one. So it's okay.
Okay, and that's it. It happens.
Yeah.
And we're talking about the 17th replacing August 10th, right?
Yeah, so
We've been on the 17th for quite a while.
July 13th and August 7th.
Yep.
Yep.
And then after that, do we anticipate moving to like a once a month meeting since we have all these working group goings? And I mean, that gives us more time to work on our working groups between meetings. Or
So I'm not averse to that, to be honest. I think it's more important, you know, that we do the work in between. I mean, it's obviously important to get us all together and so forth for that, but yeah, I'm certainly open to pushing it to every 3 weeks or monthly or whatever works for the group.
Part of it, Tom, is that we have to work around the select board meetings. So Laura, I'll get in touch with you about what they are and maybe set up a monthly schedule, and then people can weigh in on if that looks like it would work with them or not.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Sounds good. Happy to.
Okay.
And
All
so
right.
we'll push off as far as deciding when we go together. I'd love to see everybody in person at some point in time.
I would too. And
Agreed.
we're gonna let Seth and the select board be the guinea pigs on getting the perfect hybrid set up. And it's not gonna be us. So That's the idea there. All right, does
almost there.
anyone have any other business?
No.
All right, I will, how do I do this again? Give me the terminology.
Time, and we need a motion.
8:19, and I would like to motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.
Okay, and I will call the roll. Ms. Yassin,
Yes.
Ms. Risha,
Yes.
Reverend Stewart,
Yes.
Ms. Dre,
Yes.
Ms. Swope,
Yes.
and I am also a yes. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.